Hi, I'm Christian Peter, president of Dark Horse Commercial, and welcome back to another episode of the ultimate guide for Miami warehouse owners, how to sell for top dollar fast. And today we're going to be talking about one of the most important parts of selling your property, and that's pricing it for the intent of creating a bidding war. So let's get down to it. So as we've talked about in previous conversations, if you wanted to, I think this is episode two, we talked about overpricing versus underpricing. Now, first, let's talk a little bit about appraisal value versus market value, and then get into to the way people will look at your property, value your property, and how we're going to get them to pay the most for it. So, appraisal value is what appraisers use to find the highest and best use of the property. Now, that's in the eye of the beholder, but for the most part, it's going to fall into two buckets. It's either going to be your owner users or it's going to be your investors. Okay. Owner users value properties looking at the comparative sales. Why? Because they are not looking for a return. They are not using what they call the income approach, which is money comes in the form of rents, money goes out in the form of operating expenses. What's left over at the bottom is called the NOI, right? That's called the income approach when they do what's called a capitalization of the income. The appraisal value is going to determine whether an owner user or a an investor is going to be the highest and best use, and that is going to determine your market value. Now, let's say, for argument's sake, you own an investment grade property, and the majority of the folks that I work with own investment grade properties. Now, the beautiful thing about them is that it's pretty straightforward in terms of what your rents are. Okay, are they at or below the market? Great, maybe they're above the market, right? What are your operating expenses? It's a mathematical formula. It's less dependent on what other properties have sold for, as if for instance, if you're working with an owner user. But if you have clean records and you can show these are my rents, these are my expenses, what's left over is the cap rate, and that's how you will utilize that strategy to value your property. Now, let's talk about creating a bidding war. Whether you are working with an owner user or or I should say, whether you are an owner user selling your property or whether you are an investor selling your property, there's a couple things you can do. So many folks make the mistake of putting the property way high and hoping and praying that someone's going to come in, give them a low ball in comparison, or give them an offer in comparison to their over market price. And then what winds up happening is the property sits. So many people think that if they put the property very, very high and someone will come in a rational area. The reality of it is, and then I explained this in previous videos, we are in the digital age. Long gone are the times where you just put a sign in, you put it in the newspaper, and you wait for the calls to come in, right? Nowadays, most people will start their search online. Business is done very differently than it was 20 or 30 years ago, even 15 years ago. But LoopNet has kind of emerged as like the number one place. It's very user friendly. Many buyers go there. In fact, for agents and brokers like myself, it's one of the best places for finding buyers because so many people use it and it is so user friendly. The problem is the way people search for properties nowadays, they put in a range of what they're looking to spend. And if you ask someone what they're looking to spend, if they're looking to spend, $3 million, they're not going to put $5 million in the search so that you get everything from three, five, four on up to five, right? What they'll do is they'll have a maximum number that they're thinking of that they don't want to spend more than, and they'll set that as their limit. Or they'll have that maximum number that they don't want to spend that they can afford, right? That they won't, that the bank will only allow them up to that. So if you have priced your property, and we'll use a physical example. Let's say you have a property and you want to sell it and you believe the value is 3.5. You'll accept 3.5 million for the sale of the property. Great. Don't put it at 4.3. And I'll tell you why. Because the people looking for 3.5, they're going to search from 3.0 to maybe 4 million. Anything over 4 million is frankly, in their mind, out of their budget. So the problem is So many people overprice things, and what they don't really realize is, as like the old saying goes, if a tree falls in the wilderness and no one hears it, did it even fall? The same thing goes for a property that's outside of someone's psychological budget or their price range. So if you price it too high, especially over certain psychological barriers, even numbers, 4025. You don't want to take a property that was on the market for, let's say, $5 million and put it down to 5.1. You'd be better off if you're going to do a reduction, get it below the next psychological mark. And it's usually on odd or even numbers, right? The fives and the tens. But in order to get a bidding war going, you have to, out of the gate, get it as close to that 3.5 number as you feel comfortable, right? And I'll explain why. Typically, what we've seen as a rule of thumb, and it's not exactly 10%, but it's typically from 0 to 10%. Okay, anything. So if your strike price in this example is 3.5 million, if your strike price is 3.5 million, anything over 10% above, any price above that isn't really going to get many offers, right? Or if you do get an offer, it's going to be some silly offer or someone's not taking it very seriously. But what we found is from 5% overstrike to 10% overstrike, you'll get a little offers here, little offers there. Okay. Not bad. And maybe one of them will work and you'll meet somewhere in the middle. But when you start pricing from 0 to 5% over where the market is actually selling for, okay. Now let me just take a sidestep right there. A lot of people will base the value of their property on what they have seen others asking for. Asking. A lot of people say, well, I saw a property for sale down there where they're asking 5. Property over there, they're asking 6. Asking is not getting. And that's why I believe in you do the math, and the math will tell you what to do. Look at what's actually selling. Okay. So going back to it. So from 0 to 5%, if you look at properties that are selling at 0 to 5% over what properties are actually selling for, those are the ones that you get multiple offers on. Now, I'm sure, and we've talked about this in previous videos, that you've probably overpaid for something because of the auction mentality before you. Maybe you bought something because there was a last day sale, or it's the end of the month and you bought that car because, tomorrow the prices are going up. Sale ends today. Fear of missing out. We all experience it as humans. And what I would recommend is knowing that, utilize that to your advantage. So when you go to sell, make sure you get that property priced properly so that you can get as many people bidding on as possible and kind of lever them up like you do in an auction. You see people overpay for things all the time because of the fear of missing out and that auction mentality. So how do we do this? Okay. A lot of people will say, I don't want to leave money on the table, and I don't blame you. Okay. I would absolutely never want to leave a dime on the table. And trust me, you're a real estate agent or your broker, they don't want to leave money on the table either, because the more you make, the more they make, right? Everybody wins when you get the most amount of money. So what I would recommend, okay, is put it at a price as close to the strike price as possible, and then be very, very inflexible, right? Or be very, very, just stick hard on the price. Be very firm on your pricing. Okay. Very, very important. That's what will get that price up. Okay. In what we can do is, and we can talk about, if you'd like, I'm more than happy to do a broker opinion of value for you, so we can take a look at what your property is actually worth in today's market, not what people are asking, but what people are getting. Okay. We can go over kind of what those strategies look like, because there are several different strategies and how you would roll it out to the market. Because remember, you get one chance to make a first impression, and you want to make sure that you hit it out of the park to begin with. Okay. Let's talk about why testing the market backfires. There's this weird thing that happens where if a property goes on, like, I'll tell you a little story, right? When a property goes on the market, right, and people are testing it, oftentimes it'll go and it'll sit and it'll sit and it'll sit, and they won't get any offers. And then they'll reduce it by a little bit. And then they'll reduce it by a little bit. And the broker works hard and does what he can. And after a while, the property starts to get a stigma. Well, people keep seeing the email blasts once a week, and they keep reading it, and then they see, price reduction. After a while, after 6 months of this, All the brokers in the market have seen it, right? They're not pitching it to their buyers. You know why? Something must be wrong with it. That thing's been on the market forever and it's just been going around and around and around. I'm sure you've looked at a property before and saw that the sign's been up forever and it's been for sale and no one's bought it. It starts to look like 3 day old fish. It's like something's fishy, right? So testing the market doesn't work. Back in the day, it could have worked better when you're just putting a sign out front and putting it in the newspaper. Great. People had more of a let me just throw an offer at it mentality. But nowadays, when people look, they look in a digital fashion. They put in what their price range is, what their upper price range is, and they literally don't even see what's above the top of their price range. So that's why testing the market backfires. Not to mention, not only is the negative stigma that comes with not being able to sell a property and having it sit and reduce, but also the idea of a property. If you don't get a good rush in the beginning, the pricing might be off, and not dialing into the market as quickly as possible will make it backfire. Okay, let's talk about real case studies when pricing led to 10% above asking. Okay, I was selling to a school up in Broward County, right, and it was a property that was on a main thoroughfare. And what we wound up doing is we wound up putting it in front of two people. And one group really liked it and they put an offer in. And the other group really liked it and put an offer in. And what happened is it was, if you're familiar with Hollywood Boulevard, it was the 2300 Hollywood Boulevard. It was right across from the Burger King, and it was this really nice place. It was a great redevelopment play. It had a lot of land, and we had two parties vying for it. And we went up and up and up and up and up. And at the end of the day, they paid $1 million over what the original contract was for. I should say what the original bid was for, and over ask, simply because we had two people interested in the same property, and it led to a bidding war, and it went up and up and up and up. And in that case, the ask price was 4 million. So it was actually a 20% increase above what they were originally asking. So it is absolutely possible, if you put the property on the market for a price that it'll actually sell for, to get multiple people interested and bid it up. I'm sure you've been in a situation before where, I know on LoopNet sometimes, a lot of people just throw properties out there just to test what the market is, and you see overpriced. And when one comes in at a reasonable price, it stands out like a sore thumb and people jump on it. So that's how you want to appear when you're getting to the market. Why? Because you have one chance to make a first impression. I hope all this helps. Maybe this gave you some things to consider. Again, like I mentioned, if you'd like to talk about, get a broker opinion of value, I'm happy to do that. If you go to www.darkhorse-commercial.com, or if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and just click on the link below. If you're on my email list, it'll be on my website. Go ahead. It'll be in the email. It'll take you to my website, and on the very front page, just click on value your building, and we'll go ahead and have you fill out the form, and happy to help you walk through a strategy, walk you through what not only the value is, what it would actually sell for in today's market, but also give you kind of like what the strategy of the roadmap of getting it sold for maximum dollar. Thanks again for tuning in. Look forward to seeing you in the next video.